Labour unions have been in decline in the United States for decades. But now, battles at some of the biggest names in corporate America are putting the issue back on the agenda. Could unions be on the way back, or is this just another false dawn? The labour movement has been trying for years to reinvigorate its presence in American workplaces. At the movement's peak in the mid-1950s, about 35% of all American workers were unionized. That figure seems unimaginable now. Only about 10% of American workers are union members these days. Why is that? Well, partly it's to do with general shifts in the economy. Unions had traditionally been strong in heavy industries, like mining and steel, and in the auto industry. But all those industries have declined. Unions have also encountered plenty of political opposition. A generation ago, President Reagan faced an air traffic controllers strike early in his presidency. Reagan responded by firing more than 11,000 striking workers, delivering a serious blow to union power and prestige. Up until recently, it seemed as if union organisers were suffering defeat upon defeat. Last year, a high-profile battle to unionize an Amazon facility in Alabama failed by a heavy margin. Workers there voted by more than 2-1 against forming a union in April 2021. But is the tide changing? In December, a Starbucks outlet in Buffalo, New York, became the first in the chain to unionize since the 1980s. By mid-April, about 200 Starbucks outlets had begun the process, and at least 18 stores had voted to unionize. Amazon workers in Staten Island, New York, voted to unionize on April the 1st.
The first union in American history.
And retail workers with Apple are also pushing to join a union, although their efforts are at an earlier stage. The management of Starbucks and Amazon in particular have been vigorously opposed to unionization efforts. Amazon has been anti-union for years. Starbucks' recently returned CEO Howard Schultz has described his company as being assaulted by the threat of unionization. The NLRB, the National Labour Relations Board, filed a complaint against Starbucks in mid-March, contending that the company had engaged in retaliatory action against employees pushing unionization in Phoenix, Arizona. Starbucks denies this. In both those cases, bosses argue that direct dialogue between individual workers and the company works best. There are also broader concerns that unions make a company less nimble, a potentially big problem in today's hyper-competitive environment. But labour organisers and others say the companies simply want to keep workers weak so they can keep wages down and engage in other exploitative behaviour. More generally, people with left-of-centre views often note that the heyday of unions in the United States coincided with a boom for the middle class. Unionisation is one of those topics in American life that maybe doesn't get as much media coverage as it deserves. That may be because it breaks down along predictable political lines. Republicans are generally anti-union, Democrats generally pro-union. President Biden often extols the role unions have played in creating American prosperity. But the recent trend toward unionization is one to watch. And a lot depends on whether that trend picks up speed or just peters out all over again.